Hey guys, Kinggath here, and welcome to another episode of the Kinggath podcast. My guest today actually released one of my favorite mods from the last time I actually played Fallout 4 proper, just before some settlements came out, if I'm not mistaken, as far as the timeline of things. Welcome, Statsmakten. Is that how you say that?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
Can we go with stats for short? Is that cool?
Let's go with the stats. That's what people normally do.
Perfect. And stats design. I forgot to say the name of the mod. It's Diamond City
Oh,
Expansion. I think that's what you're most known for. I don't know if you have any other mods because that's the one I've been playing.
that is actually the only mod I have, or it's the second mod I have ever made. I made one small for Skyrim,
Okay.
but I don't talk about that.
I know how you feel. I have
Yeah,
a whole history of modding in the past I don't talk about. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, Diamond City Expansion is incredible. I actually, just before this call, I actually spent a bunch of time playing around in it, like with TFC on, just flying around trying to get some feel for things that I might have missed, because I've been like playing
Some nice
it.
bugs and glitches to throw at me.
I actually did find one. There's a floating
Oh,
clothes
is it?
hanger up in the sky, but
No.
that might not be you. I have so many mods installed. I have no idea, which ones are doing which. But
Yeah, I'm
because
gonna go ahead and blame your filthy, dirty mod order.
that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Because I have not fully tested all of the mods I've got. I'm currently doing like my first proper playthrough in the last year and a half, and I just you install a bunch of mods that are new and see what
Yeah.
happens. So, but
You want to know a secret?
what's that?
I haven't played Fallout 4.
Oh,
It's true. It's true. Well, it's kind of half true because I only played for like 20 hours up
okay.
until I got to that Diamond City. And then I got so disappointed at the location that I just started modding instead.
Oh wow, I think that's a common story. Not necessarily the not playing through. I think most modders play it through once,
Yeah, yeah.
but the whole just never play it again, because there's something addictive about creating your own game, of like, or
Yeah,
even
it
adding
is. Yeah.
content. So then every time I
Yeah.
get the urge to game, I'm just like, well, I could game more. I could add more to the game, and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah. So I guess, was it 1 year ago I released the mod? I think so. So yeah, my character has been in Diamond City ever since.
oh, that's so funny.
So, yeah.
Because it actually looks like you uploaded it February 2017, and then so that's
Oh, shit. So it's
actually
2 years.
2 years. Yeah, because you released it about a
Darn.
month before I released Sim Settlements. Because I remember
Oh,
specifically,
yeah.
I loved your logo, and that's like, so I immediately clicked on that mod when it came up. I used to be a junkie about clicking on it on new mods that would pop up. And yours I grabbed right away because your logo was so awesome. And I remember it so much because at the time I was having a graphic artist design the Sim Settlements logo. And he had
Oh, okay.
said, "Can you go grab a bunch of logos for other mods that you like?" And yours was the first one I grabbed and sent him as a
Mm.
sample, because I'm like, "Yeah, these are like, here's some ones that I like the style of." So like, clearly
Oh, so
you've
I
got
can,
some professional design experience.
yeah, so maybe I can quote Seddon and say that I kind of am responsible for your mod.
Yeah, exactly. But do you have some sort of professional design background? Because your
I
stuff looks
do,
really
yeah.
pro. Yeah.
Yeah, I do actually. I have a background as art director, so
Oh,
I've been doing that
fantastic.
stuff for a while.
Now, do you do anything in the game development, or just in general with design?
No, it started as advertising, but right now I'm working at a product design company.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, your stuff
I
feels
kind of,
like
I kind
it.
of wish. I mean, I wish I worked with gaming, but on the other hand, I'm glad I don't. I
Sure.
think
Yeah, I sometimes
because it's
feel the
hard to
same
work with
way.
your hobby. I don't know about
Right.
you. Do you work
I'm a programmer, so
in
I don't
gaming?
do I don't do in the game. I'm not working in the game development industry completely. Like I do. I've done some little bits for people to help with their projects, but nothing full time.
Mm.
But yeah, I feel ya on there's something about, once you take your hobby and turn it into a career, it can change your relationship with it by quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, looking at your mod page, I mean, it looks like you could be developing the copy for like actual game websites.
You
It's
know,
like, oh,
I think
this.
that's in this case it could be a curse because it might look like I'm a whole team of people behind the mod, but it's only
Right.
me.
Uh,
So
yeah, so the expectations might be too high, and then
might be, yeah.
yeah. I think the attention to detail you have is unbelievable. And what was funny is because I haven't played in so long, when I started digging around in Diamond City, I was having trouble figuring out which stuff was yours and which stuff was part of the vanilla game. And the way I found to be able to identify it is the best stuff was yours. So like you put way more effort into the lighting, and you seem to put a lot of background sounds in, whereas that stuff seems to be absent in most of Bethesda's. Like they use a lot more muted lighting, where you used a lot of shadow lighting and God rays and things like that.
But yeah, at the same time, it's so much easier for a modder to do that because I don't have the same restraints as the developers do, of course.
Right. Yeah, so, and you don't have
I don't have to care about
either.
the optimization things, and I don't have to care about the Xbox or anything, or the deadlines.
Right, right. Yeah, the lack of the things you were doing, I was clear. There were several points in there like, there's no way Xbox could handle this.
Yeah. And Diamond City is a really tough location. I mean, it's so performance heavy as it is already.
Oh, it runs really well, at least on my computer. I don't know how other people feel about it.
Yeah, I've been trying my best to optimize it, but still, there's so much view. There's like nothing obstructs the view anywhere. So
that
so much stuff rendering.
Yeah, well, and it looks like you've put a lot of effort into taking care of like pre-calling and making sure you've got as much as you can optimized out there. I saw you had some credits that were thanking some other people for helping you out with that stuff.
Yeah.
So
as far as my amateurish modding goes, I try my best.
Well, it's tough to do that stuff because the fun part is the stuff you're doing at first, and then like going back and optimizing and cleaning up those little issues is the work. It's like the actual job like part that you're not getting paid to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because like I said, I played Fallout for maybe 20 hours, but I still have 300 hours clocked in the game.
Oh yeah, I would have expected, and I bet you've got at least that much again in the creation kit.
Yeah, exactly. Easily. Yeah, that's only for playtesting. So
right.
You know the drill. I mean,
oh yeah, I know it quite well. But like just looking at like my one of my favorite sections, I think was in there at launch, was the Grand Junction where Reeves is hanging out. Is that one of the ones that you had in at launch? Yeah. So that was one I remembered from the first time I dove into your mod, and you've added quite a bit since then. You've had a couple of major versions that added, like I think the Red Sea District you added later. Yeah,
that was probably the biggest update so far.
That place is huge and very detailed.
Yeah. It was big. But yeah, the junction, that was actually the first location I made. That's where we started.
That was the first one where I was like, oh man, this guy's location, like that space is better detailed than anything else in Fallout 4. And like you said, I know part of that is because they had to worry about Xbox, but it's just it felt really good. It reminded me actually of Metro, like some of the areas where there were people in and Last Light of that. Like that was the kind of level of detail they did in their interiors because they were much tighter spaces. It wasn't open world. And so that's the feel it gave me, which I really love that series. So it was cool to see that in Fallout 4.
Yeah, it was really cool. But it's hard as well because you can't be too detailed because you want a smooth transition between the areas. So I don't know how you've done it with your these these buildings that you make. They're like these prefabs almost.
Yeah.
Do you over detail them so they like stick out like a sore thumb, or do you try to make them as
Yeah, I think I try and make them. Yeah, I think I try and make them consistent with the Fallout 4's base style. In fact, there's the one part I go a little above is, for example, you know those shop stalls that you can build in workshop mode? Mm-hmm. It looks very clear to me like Bethesda wanted to have stuff on the shelves of them and like hang on the little hooks, and they must have cut them for optimization for the sake of console. Yeah. So I don't do that. Instead, what we do is we flag all those items as clutter, and people can disable that. So that way.
Okay.
That way you have kind of two, like it's just like flip of a switch, all those items disappear, and then people on lower end systems or Xbox can actually enjoy the content. So that's kind of the middle ground I found. And
I don't care that much for players.
Well, it looks like this has been a passion project that you keep going on, and I see you have more plans still. So part of it, you got to keep yourself interested too. So like,
it truly is like that. Yeah, but I mean, people keep me interested too, and people show their. I mean,
oh right.
I mean, when they show their love for the project, I mean, of course I feel more motivated to work on it.
Oh, absolutely. I get you 100%. Like I made a comment in a video I made recently that was, any mod author who tells you they don't care how many people download their mod is a liar. Everybody cares. Everybody likes to know the things that they're working on are appreciated.
Of course.
So,
yeah. I mean, it's really important. I mean,
yeah. Because if you had like an audience of 5, you wouldn't have put 300 hours in it. You would have stopped after the initial release.
Yeah, probably, because then I would probably be content there for my own sake, that the location would be a bit more interesting or a bit more appealing to the eyes.
Oh, and it definitely is. Maybe,
yeah. But maybe I wouldn't work too much with the content after that.
Sure. Well, and you can see. I don't know how much you've because I haven't kept up with all of your updates, though I will start now that I'm playing again. I don't know how many times did you ever go back? Did you ever go back and add more? Like, did you go expand on any of the areas you had already released, or when you release an area outside of bugs, do you consider that area complete for yourself?
I think I tend to go back a little, but not that too much. Mostly because I left some stuff unfinished.
Sure.
Like in the Red Sea district, I was planning on so many things, like adding quests and a lot of interaction there, which I didn't have the time to make or the experience to create either. Because, I mean, it's one thing to build areas because that's what I'm good at. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole other thing to do the programming part, because I knew nothing about that part.
It looks like you started trying, though, because I can see you've got several scripted sequences, like when you go into the Red Sea and you approach. Who's the shady guy down there who looks like a rich dude sitting in a little box, and then
the Liamanto guy. Yeah.
Liamanto, yeah. And then his little guard approaches you. Like, you've clearly started to experiment with some of that.
Yeah, but I think it's breaking in the seams. You should not look at the code there. Which is why what I'm also worried about, because maybe this is like really heavy on the performance, because I have no idea how to optimize the code.
Got it. I can tell you that the game engine is actually surprisingly good at handling even crappy scripts.
It seems like it, yeah.
Because I think the way Bethesda works is they essentially, in fact, I've heard them say this specifically at Game Development Conference talks, is that they try and empower their like lower level designers to try and script and do things and just try and learn that way, as just learn by doing. So they tend to like have everybody branch off into little squads and tackle an area, and they just like anybody who has a little bit of idea of how to do it, they're like, yeah, just run with it. And, if you get stuck, like, we'll try and help you through it. And if you look through their source, you can see that there's just dramatically different styles of coding throughout it. And some of it is, as a coder, I can see some of it is clean. Some of it is just like, whoa, what was this guy thinking? Or like, this guy went way beyond his pay grade to pull this off. Like just some stuff where the game is clearly, they've got their engine designed to handle that sort of thing. So I don't think you have to worry about it too much. I think the only time you have to really worry about optimization is if you're getting into systems like if you were to design your own workshop system, like that needs some pretty optimized code. But I think for scenes and stuff, you're probably fine.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, I really don't have a senior to look at my code and help me. So it's probably very dirty. But I mean, it runs. So.
Right. I'm surprised and maybe I did run into one issue with that flying coat hanger. That's probably from some other mod, but I'm surprised that of my mod list, I don't have a deep one yet. I'm doing something where I develop my mod list with the audience, where they suggest mods to me every week and I slowly build it up. But I was just surprised I didn't run into more mods that conflicted with yours, because I know from experience messing with areas to add stuff is that's like, once you start interacting with the world Bethesda already created, that's when you can run into a lot of conflicts.
Yeah, and I think the first version I had was really messy and things were glitching out of control immediately.
But you think it's pretty under control now, based on what you've
No, it's definitely under control. I'm still getting a lot of comments about things glitching out, but it's 99% of the times it's that people have a messy load order or some mod conflict that shouldn't even be there to begin with.
Right. Yeah, like I know there are a couple of other Diamond City overhaul mods, and it's like, well, yeah, you can't use them both together, guys. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but you have to be prepared with the consequences.
Sure. Where they're just going to probably be stacking stuff on top of each other.
Yes.
So now with that quest stuff, so it looks like you've got the seeds planted there. Like there's a lot of great, you can tell you put a lot of effort into your character development, even though the characters, you repurpose some vanilla lines. You can see their backstories. Like I can see you put outfits on them that match their character. You've got little personal effects laid around. So it looks like you've given all of these characters, at least the named ones, you've given them a little backstory. And personally, I've been playing where I am not just breaking into everyone's houses. So a lot of them, I haven't even seen all the detail you've done because you've got them, locked or under key or whatever. And I'm sure, and that feels, it feels like part of the natural game. Like it feels like you took all of this effort in, and it seems to me like you're preparing to build like a really badass quest mod. Is that something you want to do eventually?
It might end with a big build up and then nothing. So because it takes so much work to do quests, especially with I guess I have very high expectations on myself because I really want to make these quests that stay true to like the original Fallout games, where you have like these huge quest lines where you can even break the quest by doing the wrong way. And I think, especially since I'm a one-man show, I think I need to involve at least voice actors and stuff in that case.
Oh, absolutely. So, fortunately, there's a really great voice acting community around Bethesda games. And we've been involved with them recently with Sim Settlements because we're expanding into the quest game ourselves, and we've found that
I was thinking about that. How can you? I'm surprised that you could have that you could restrain yourself to only making these settlement things.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely.
Like you would want to build up and.
Oh, I don't know if you've played much of
Sims. As I am.
Oh yeah, if you look at some settlements, it is feature creep to hell. Like we do a lot more than just settlement stuff now. That's just kind of.
I've seen that. Yeah.
It works as a nice like foundation because the settlements are super underutilized in the base game, so I can use that to grow all sorts of stuff from that, knowing that I'm not going to be conflicting because the settlements are generally designed to be dynamic. So then as long as my quests and code are dynamic, then I can kind of use those as a good basis to do whatever I want. So it's been in fact the latest I was going to say the latest expansion is almost nothing to do with settlements other than the fact that it lets you attack them, but it's all a big quest line and adds perks. And so, yeah, I've had a lot of ideas brewing in my mind of other things I wanted to add to the game, and that's kind of been an outlet lately.
I have a lot of stuff to do once I leave Diamond City. That's cool.
Would you ever do like Good Neighbor or any of the other cities?
Probably not. I think because this has been such a big project. So.
Right.
And I think... I haven't been to Good Neighbor, but I've been there in the creation kit. So,
sure.
And from what I can see, it's actually a kind of nice location, and it makes sense when I look at it.
Yeah, it's like the CD counterpoint to Diamond City.
Yeah,
it's kind of how it's
kind of
designed.
like that.
Yeah, it's so because, you've got almost
maybe because sorry, you go.
No, that's all right.
No, you go because I didn't have anything.
Oh, that's right. We'll do some creative editing to cut out our horrendous back and forth.
Yes,
there. No
please.
problem.
Yeah.
Rick, get on it. That's my editor. I was going to ask is, so it's taken you since February 2017. So you've got about 2 years into this. Now, I imagine based on your release schedule, because looking at like the dates you release this stuff, do you just get bursts of inspiration and then you take a break and come back to it? Or are you constantly working on it a little bit here and there every week and then it just takes a while before it snowballs into a release?
It's kind of the former since, it's a passion project. So, I work on it when I have time to work on it. Mm-hmm. It's hard to make everything, the life puzzle and everything.
Sure.
But yeah, I do get this kind of kicks of inspiration. Usually when some nice comment lands on YouTube or on the Nexus, like someone, hey, where's the update going? I really love this mod. And then I get this burst of energy again.
Yeah, for sure.
So
people go comment nicely on other mods, and you'll see those developers suddenly wake up.
Yeah, do it. It means the world to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I definitely would not be as obsessed with Sim Settlements as I am now if it weren't for the overwhelming support from the community. It really, it's a strong motivator. So the next update you have listed, and I actually just ran into today, the entryway to it is the abandoned hallways of Fenway Park. Now, is that are you imagining something like we have at typical baseball stadiums where it's kind of the hallways with all the concession stands that fill up the underneath the stands? Is that kind of what that's going to be? Or is this like underground utility tunnels?
Kind of bit of both, but I mean, I've never set a foot on a baseball field ever.
Okay.
Or stadiums, so it's hard for me to know how they look like. But I've been actually Googling and trying to make it look as not realistic, but as authentic as possible.
Sure.
So you do get behind the bleachers, and you can go behind the green monster and everything.
Oh, very cool.
Kind of like this, because they have this pathway in the real location, and I've been trying to stay true to that.
Oh yeah, say because there should be plenty of old material on Fenway that you can look up and
exactly.
dig into.
So there's a lot of maintenance tunnels. There's locations with restaurants. There's the ticket shops, and I've been thinking of a gift shop as well, where you can find some new unique loot.
Sure.
Hopefully.
Yeah, because it would be. I mean, where what's his name? The guy with the swatters. Like he would have had to dig up hhis stash of stuff from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm planning to do, and I think it's like 90% is actually already built, as far as the interiors go.
Right. So you just got to polish it all up and get all those little extra details in there, like because you've done a great job of taking advantage of all the little things that Bethesda's put into place. Like you make great use of idle markers and sound effects and just like little touches that just kind of bring the place to life. And like I said, it was very hard for me to distinguish where your stuff or where Bethesda stuff ended and your stuff started. You've got it all meshed in really well and followed their same pattern, which I very much appreciate. I like that you put in that kind of effort.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to feel like authentic. I mean, you should not feel like how to say it, like a gap in between. So you feel like this where you lose the immersion.
Yeah. So you mentioned something when we started talking that I think you pre-answered my question in a way that's disappointing, not because of anything you did, but you said that Diamond City is such a performance hog, especially in that exterior because it's all open. So one of the things I noticed when I was flying around, and I never paid attention to this, I'm sure you're well aware of it, of all of the fake housing areas up in the stands where they used like perspective tricks and they've got like those flattened lights and it looks from a distance like there's areas that you could explore up there, but when you go up close to them, they're actually like super miniature and fake. There's no paths between them or actual buildings. Are those areas that you would like to touch at some point?
Do you mean the areas like in the upper bleachers?
Like there's a mid-level, like below the mayor's area, and then off to the right of that, there's a bunch of areas where it looks like people probably live, but it's all fake.
Yeah.
It's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my fake. So
you added that in.
So yeah, it wasn't there to begin with. Like the bleachers were completely empty.
Got it. Okay. See, again, I couldn't tell where your stuff in, but I was.
That's great. It's great to hear.
Likely in the background of our conversation, we'll have some of the footage I took while I was playing around in it. And there's a section in there where if you were paying attention to like where my camera is facing, you can see I keep looking over at it. Like, how do I get over there? How do I get over there? And then eventually I gave up and just went to the fly cam and I was like, oh, it's fake. I had no idea. And I know there are some areas that Bethesda did that too, but it's more like they used like these kind of black outlines up in the upper areas to do things. And but the way you did it is very clever, and it looks. I was sure Bethesda did that, and I was like, oh, that's a clever way they made it look like it's more populated than it actually is. Is that because it looks like there's still so much room you could do stuff with in Diamond City?
Yeah,
it's such a big space.
Yeah, but then again, the performance hog, so it's really hard because there's so much visibility.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to solve it, and I might do something with that area. So we'll see.
Well, I think your solution of going into interiors is a great one. Of because I think we're all used to loading screens with Bethesda games, and we just accept it. And as long as there's some interesting stuff behind the door, I'm always happy to use them. And then I think if you've got an SSD, the load times aren't actually that bad at all.
I had that. I was thinking of if I should do the Red Sea District as an exterior or interior. But since it became so huge, I decided to hide it behind a loading screen.
Right. Now you have... Yeah. Well, and it works great. I think there's enough to explore in there that it's totally worth it. I think even some of your other sections, like even though like the Grand Junction, it's fairly small in there, but it was worth the load screen because it's very detailed in there. And so it just feels good to find a spot like that, and and just explore the little areas and whatnot. In fact, the Grand Junction reminds me of my father's garage growing up. He was a hoarder of all the
it reminds
tools
me
and
of my
everything.
father's garage. Oh yeah, he's such a hoarder.
Yeah. So it was like a little nostalgia trip going in there as well. I was like, oh man, this is very well thought out, because this looks exactly like something he would do of making creative use of containers and stacking them, and file cabinet drawers as like just to store stuff. It was great.
But I mean, to be fair, like all Bethesda players are hoarders, so
That's true.
everyone should feel right at home there.
We are. That's the only reason the only reason I got into modding Fallout 4 was because I wanted a solution for my hoarding addiction. So I had to create one, and that could drop me down that rabbit hole. So are there?
I don't think anyone has like a Scandinavian settlement with minimalism. I don't think that ever happened.
I mean, there is, somebody did release a mod that's I think it's called Mad Kia, and it's basically just like thousands of IKEA furniture pieces so that you can do those clean lines.
Oh, I love it. Makes me happy as a Swede. I will definitely use that mod.
It's quite detailed. I remember flipping through and I was like, oh my god, somebody put in some serious time to designing these items, because it takes a while to do the workshop items correctly, like if you want to have all the collisions set up.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was quite the effort of passion, but I think that's what mods are. I think it's there's some of us, we get that bug, we just want to create things, and we'll put in some crazy hours, and like you said, as long as people are giving us that fuel of like, hey man, nice job, we'll keep going.
Yeah. But I mean, there's so many aspects of modding that it's crazy, because I mean, there's one thing just building the areas, but I've been trying to make some like custom meshes and stuff. But then, you start with the texturing, you go with the modeling, and then, whoops, you also need a collision. How the hell does that work? And then, like, you put it on ice, and you just move on with something else.
Well, you've got, it looks like, I mean, you end up experimenting with a lot of disciplines that maybe aren't your core. Like you said, you've had to learn a little bit of scripting, and you end up slicing apart some models to get the things you need. Have you been surprised about all the stuff you've had to learn in order to pull this off?
Not really, because I mean, I've been seeing this as kind of educational for my profession as well. So
okay.
In my mind, it's just like I'm doing this to become better at my own job. So
sure. So
it just feels. I mean, it's very. I'm a curious guy. I mean, I love to find this, look at tutorials, and just go deep into these things. But
I think.
But it's shocking how much stuff you have to know to make a game. It's crazy. It's no surprise that there are like teams of hundreds of people behind them.
Yeah, especially with the modern stuff, with how deep the gameplay goes and how much detail they put into them. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, it just blows my mind how much effort that must have taken to pull off. Like every little area is more detailed than everything in Fallout 4, for example. And it's like I know the Fallout team had to be, over 100 people. So like, how many more people did they need to do something at that scale? That's nuts.
Not only the areas, like the smooth animations and everything.
Yeah. Just across
so
the
hard
board.
To nitpick on that game, because everything's just so nice.
So well thought out. Yeah. It's a lot easier in the Bethesda stuff to see where they had to cut some corners, but at the same time, I get, like, Bethesda is always, this is something I've been talking a lot about with people, because Bethesda's getting so much crap for 76, and rightly so. It's not a good game, but the point is they are a tiny team compared to most dev studios anymore. Yet they're still competing in that AAA space, and so to me, it looks like it's like the David and Goliath thing. So I always have a little bit of sympathy for them, as they're one of the smaller teams, and like they're trying, they're doing their best to try and compete with these crazy monster teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have the fullest respect for the developers. They're doing a heck of a job, even though they're cutting corners, and maybe they should update the engine, but they're doing a great job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're all hooked on developing for this game because we love it. And obviously, we wouldn't put in hundreds of hours in something we hated. So,
yeah, because I mean, some of the things that's really bugged me in Bethesda games, maybe since Morrowind, is the stiff animations.
Sure.
But again, I mean, I understand that they have these stiff animations, because if they didn't, it would be so hard to make all these custom quests and stuff.
Right.
So
I think they're trying to it almost seems like they're trying to go middle of the road with the animations so they can reuse them as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I get that, even though it's I really hate bad animations. It really breaks the immersion for me.
Sure.
It's way worse than a low resolution texture. It's just
for me,
when like you. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I was gonna say that for me the killer is sound. Bad sound files. Oh, it's just grating.
You mean like low quality sound,
or sounds that don't sync up correctly, poor quality sounds. Like there's a mod out there that someone recommended to me recently that I took a look at, and it's got like custom vending machines, and they're really well animated, and they're really well detailed. They're scripted. They look nice, but the sound doesn't match up perfectly, and it doesn't have the same. It's not at the same I guess compression as the base game, and so it's just grating to me. Even though they're totally acceptable for like the fact that somebody put the effort in to make a sound that kind of matches up.
Of course it is, yeah.
Because making custom Foley is very difficult if you're not, unless you've got a lot of experience with it. So like for somebody who's an amateur and just did the animations because they're an animator, and then they took the effort to find the sounds, but it was so bad to me. I was just like, I can't do it. I can't use so sounds are my deal breaker.
Yeah, sound design is really hard, and yeah, I would agree with you too. So, okay, sounds and animation. Really important stuff.
Yeah. So have you been tempted to move on to any other games then to try and mod those or to work with those? Is there something that has better animation perhaps?
I don't know, actually, because, I mean, like you say, Bethesda it's so easy to mod for them, and it's kind of where you feel at home, even though this is like my actual first real mod.
Yeah.
So... but it's just so easy.
Yeah,
to make stuff.
Modding. It's especially easy if you're the type of person like you described, of you're willing to explore problems and read tutorials. Like I think that's pretty. You've got to be a big self-starter, very self-motivated if you want to mod. Just because nothing is fully documented, and any idea you come up with, you can't just like Google, how do I add this to the game?
No,
you have
to
you have to be willing to break it down into components, and that's one of the things I think a lot of new people who try and mod end up running into a brick wall and failing, is because they're hoping for a tutorial to teach them to do exactly what they have in their head, when in reality you got to figure out all the little pieces and be willing to dig and ask questions and be persistent.
Yeah,
but
then
least,
I mean, thanks to the engine being so old, there's so much documentation out there and so many tutorials. So
oh yeah, absolutely. Especially
eventually you will get there. So
right, especially with Skyrim, thankfully because they've been building on the same game engine, almost anything you learn from the older tutorials ends up almost exactly translating into their newer games. So like I've learned a lot of stuff by digging into the creation kit site for Skyrim and finding stuff that's not documented on the Fallout 4 one, and then it's like, oh, that it works. So you can learn a lot from this community that's been around for so damn long.
Yeah, or people trying to put stuff from Fallout 4 into Fallout 76. Yeah, it works.
Right. Same thing. So they just keep building on it, keep iterating.
It shouldn't work. It's not good that it works, but it works.
Yeah, well, that's where you were saying like it would be nice to see some more engine updates, but I think part of the reason they don't is because just like we would have to relearn all those workflows in the modding community, they would have to reteach their whole staff all of those workflows, which is expensive.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
slows everybody down and whatnot. But yeah, their game is more moddable than almost any game I've ever been involved with. And so it is hard to like think of like where would I go if I wasn't going to mod this game? Like there's not really an equivalent alternative, even if I could find one in the same tone. It's not, because there's a lot of games in that post-apocalypse space now. It's become a pretty crowded genre in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years. And
sorry, I lost you there.
Oh, okay. Well, this is why we record on our own side, so we don't have to have those hiccups in the in the cast. But no, what I said was the genre of post-apocalypse is very crowded now. Like in the last decade, there's just been tons of games coming into that space, but none of them are moddable. Oh, I think I've lost them all together. We might have to like do some clipping here. I was talking about the other games to mod. Yes. Well, I was talking about other games to mod. So so it's hard to think of another game that would even be worth moving into modding. So there are tons of post-apocalypse games now. Like it's become kind of a joke about every game being post-apocalypse in some form, whether it's zombies or end of a nuclear war. Like there's so many games in that space. But even if I liked the tone of another one as much as I do Fallout, they don't put out the editing tools. They don't, or if they do, they're
Mm-hmm.
never as complete as Bethesda, or there's not as much community knowledge. Like there's so much tribal knowledge among Bethesda fans that
Mm-hmm.
it would be hard to move out of this space if we wanted to continue modding.
Yeah, definitely. But which games have you worked with before?
So
In
I've
modding?
worked with, I used to mod a lot. Quake 3 was the first game I ever modded. I modded that like
Mm.
crazy. I did a bit with Source and the original Half-Life.
Mm-hmm.
I modded StarCraft,
Oh yeah, I
the original
remember. Yeah,
StarCraft a lot.
I was playing around with that too, or especially with Quake One actually.
Oh, Quake 1, wow. Yeah, I
Yeah,
never,
but the thing is, I didn't have any like high speed internet until I was already a man. So I was just sitting at home, playing against bots and playing and building different like single player campaigns that
sure,
nobody
sure.
got to see because I couldn't share it with anyone.
And now if you were to dig them up, you wouldn't want to share them with anyone.
Probably not. Yeah.
Especially when you've got the reputation for something like Diamond City Expanded. So
Yeah.
do you have a, speaking of that, getting back to it, do you have any do you set yourself deadlines or anything, or is it just kind of, you just kind of go until you feel it's ready and then get it packaged up?
Well, I mean, I think I learned my lesson with the last update I did because I think it was like before the summer I posted a trailer for the upcoming, um, the latest version, which is called Upper Stands,
Yeah.
and it took me half a year more until it actually came out.
Oh wow. Now was that
So
because of
because I was really thinking that okay, now I do it, I'm so psyched, I'm gonna do this all over the summer, and I'm gonna release it just like in August or something.
right?
Didn't happen because because life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much of it was not necessarily just life, but also problems? Was it because of problems you ran into during development, or is it literally like you have
Yeah,
your
that
flow
too. Like
down? Yeah,
yeah, like small issues, like some scripting that I couldn't make sense of, and then it gets started bugging me, and then I just got irritated at modding, and just had to take a break.
sure, sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, that's one of the things where I tend to stay involved in a lot of aspects of the mod. So even though my primary goal or my primary job on some settlements now is just coding and other people take care of the other stuff, is
Mm-hmm.
some of it I still let myself get involved in, like designing buildings and stuff, just so that if I'm stressed out and stuck on a problem,
Mm-hmm.
I can go help out still without banging my head against the same thing. But you don't really have that option if you're the one man team. You kind of
Yeah,
all
and I
that
mean,
burden falls
I'm
on you.
I'm very much aware that it's my own fault because I'm a lone wolf in modding. I mean, I could reach out to other people, but
Right.
for some reason, I guess I'm I guess I'm both a feature creep and a control freak,
Sure.
which is not a good combination. So
I think
yeah,
all of us are feature creepers a little deep down.
yeah,
I see so many mods that start stepping outside of the bounds of what you want from them, where it's,
hmm
I just had this conversation with another modder the other day of, there's a mod called Better Locational Damage, which is very popular. It's a very cool mod, but
hmm
it does a few things where it's like, well, that's outside of damage now. Now you're stepping into, and now I want to
Oh
use your
yeah,
cool
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mod, but now you're forcing me to also use this other mechanic that maybe I don't agree with. And I think that's something we all have to battle internally of like,
hmm
how do we keep within our lane, like so that we're not forcing people to use too much of our stuff.
Yeah, I remember that happened a lot in Skyrim when I was adding mods, and some stuff was just very weird that they added. That didn't make no sense.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it really, yeah.
And I don't know where the line is to draw on that. What I've tried to do
hmm
personally is try and introduce a lot of options. So it's just like, if you don't, you turn this feature on or off, and then that way
Yeah.
I can, that makes me feel comfortable just adding whatever the hell I want. And then I've
hmm
also now started separating out chunks of the mod into their own thing. So
Yeah.
that's been my solution. But yeah, it's so
Yeah,
hard
and I
to
think that's a
resist
good
it.
idea. I think that's the way to go. Really.
Yes, if I feel like I must make it all one mod. And I think the other part of it, the reason people might have done it at the time, especially with Skyrim, was because the
hmm
mod load order used to be pretty much static. You couldn't go past 255. So if you're releasing a
All
bunch
right.
of these
Yeah.
little miniature mods, people aren't going to use them just because they're filling up their load order. But now with the ESL
Yeah.
format, it's not really a concern. It's kind of like
Yeah.
you can kind of release whatever stupid little tiny mod you want, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Now,
But then I mean, if you release a small mod next to your big mod,
right.
maybe you won't get so much attention for that one.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that's 100%
once we
the
have
case.
once we have one under the radar, to
Yeah.
add as much we want into that one.
Right.
So I can understand that happens.
Because you want to get your product out to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
They're already using it. Yeah.
Yeah. But then
Now,
again, why do I want to do that? Because I don't get paid for this.
right. Like all you're doing is increasing the amount of time you're going to have to spend on support.
Yeah, exactly.
So are there ideas you've had? Because I see one of your upcoming optional things, and this is probably like the thing you release after you're done. It sounds like. Have you run into a lot of stuff in the vanilla game that you've wanted to edit that some people might be offended by? Is there a lot of, or do you have like a queue of ideas of like, I'd like to change this vanilla location or change where this character lives or things like that?
Oh, you mean apart from Diamond City?
No, like even in Diamond City.
Inside Diamond City.
Inside Diamond City. I imagine you're mostly focused on Diamond City because it's a big project.
Because that's the whole place I've been. No, I mean, I played 20 hours. Maybe it was 30 hours. I don't know.
Right. So you've seen all the stuff like northwest of Diamond City.
But the thing is, I'm a really hardcore gaming in the sense that I really want to role play when I play games.
Okay.
So it took me quite a while to get to Diamond City.
Sure.
Because I started in this. What is it called? What's the place where you start the settlement?
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary. Yeah, exactly. So I just started there and then went to doing like small errands around that area just so I could afford to buy a camp equipment because I had that mod.
Oh,
you can, no, you don't buy it. You actually have to make it yourself.
Sure, you got to collect all the materials and build
it.
But
I played only, so if it was nighttime, I had to go back to Sanctuary because I couldn't leave the area overnight because that was dangerous.
Yeah, I kind of did that in my survival playthrough of trying to never be traveling at night, and that adds a lot of time to the playthrough.
It does add a lot, yeah. And I mean, I always play survival in this kind of games because I really want it dirty.
So it took you. So you've not had a lot of time in the other part, but I guess getting back to the question I had was: did you find a lot of stuff in Diamond City while you've been toying with it in the areas that Bethesda did do details? Like, for example, in some of the shops they have or the homes they have, are there stuff in those that you've been wanting to mess with?
I mean, there are some gripes here and there, but I mean, I'm not sure if I want to touch things that are there from the vanilla game.
Okay.
And mostly because of because other modders have edited stuff there as well. So I kind of feel reluctant to touch on things that might start conflicting with others.
Right.
So I might leave most stuff be, actually.
Okay.
And I think the center of Diamond City, like the marketplace, I think that place is really well done, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's where they focus their effort for sure. They wanted you to have that really cool visual when you walk in, and
exactly.
Yeah, that's always my favorite part of the Fallout genre in general is they tend to make statements with their cities, is that you walk in and you just don't forget it ever. And that was like our driving force for Rise of the Commonwealth, is we were like, well, let's make all the settlements feel like that, where you walk in and it's like, oh my God, this place is amazing.
You walk in with awe. Yeah.
Right. And then you just don't forget about that design. And that was kind of our driving force there. So I think they captured that with Diamond City, but obviously, and you felt the same a lot of us did, which is that Diamond City, after that, it was pretty underwhelming. It's like you've got this massive space that should basically be holding, all of humanity's last hope should be probably piled into this place, cowering from the horrible stuff that's out there. And instead, there's like 20 people.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a magic wand, and I could just do whatever I wanted with Diamond City, I would really, really move all the buildings away from this ground and build everything up in the stands. Because why waste the only agricultural area you have in the city?
Right. You would think that would all be farms down there.
Yeah, there would all be farms, and up in the stands you already have your ceiling and your floors.
Right.
You don't have to build anything. So the most sensible thing would be actually to build there.
Right, to just be living underneath the stands.
Yeah, and I think that's. I mean, Bethesda they do great fantasy settings. They don't really do realistic settings.
Right.
And I think it kind of bums me out a little when I look at Diamond City. Like, for example, one thing I did change with the vanilla location was move that school bus away from the rooftop.
Okay.
So they had this huge school bus on top of the school building.
Right.
If you remember.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how did they? Okay, first question: how did they get that bus up there? No idea. And second, why did they put it up there?
Yeah.
Because the only thing that's up there is like something that some junker left up there.
Yeah, to me, that's part of their design direction. Of they love the kind of silliness of it, and like it's just a visual statement of like you never forget that bus that's up there. In fact, clearly when you put that, because you added a bus over the walkway, like the stairs that you walk in, and like that stood out to me. I was like, oh wow, that's new. Did not expect to see that.
So I kind of moved it to a location where it would have a more of a purpose, kind of.
Sure.
So like an inner fortification, because
right.
I mean, I could see where they were going with that bus, and I think it was part of their grandiose plans of making Diamond City huge.
Sure.
But then they ran out of time. So because if you look at the concept art, they had all these the cranes where they were lifting up scrap from the outside and everything, and they had buildings up in the stands.
Right. Oh, I really like that. I
guess they ran out of time. So.
I really like that area you have where you've got people kind of cleaning up the charred area, like they're starting to expand. It looks really cool.
Yeah, yeah, and that was my way of not building too much. Like, what the hell am I going to do with this big area?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's just scorched. Done.
Well, I mean, it gave it a cool effect, and it looks like your place is alive, and it's going to be slowly growing, which I'm a huge fan of that, of seeing evolution, especially because. And another thing, like, I don't want to keep talking about Sim Settlements, but too much. But that's something in Sim Settlements we wanted to embrace, was the fact that since you're playing this game for, most people put in hundreds of hours in their characters, is that it's nice to see some evolution during the gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So like you have a start there. It would be really cool if, and why I was touching on wondering if you were going to plan on doing quests. It would be really cool to have quests that would result in them finishing that cleanup and then building more as you were playing the game, right? That would be.
I was thinking about that kind of stuff, and maybe like clean out the insides of Fenway Park as well, like making small new areas there.
Yeah,
kind of like, because I was looking at the Sim Settlements as well. Like, I want to have something like this, something that kind of builds itself,
right?
Like, so it looks new every time you play.
Yeah,
but. Programming.
Well, one of the things I'm doing with my code now is opening it up. So I started with Workshop Framework. It's all open source, and I'm in the process of doing a full recode of Sim Settlements, and then that will end up open source as well. So
really,
yeah. So everybody will be able to take advantage of that code base and use it for whatever.
Oh my god! But that must take so much time.
It does. It takes a lot of time, especially because I have to change the way I think about it. So like I have to think about it how the standards are in programming instead of how I like to think about things, and so I have to try and do things in a way that any other programmer can pick it up easily, so it's not.
Yeah, that's the most difficult thing, to do documentation and that stuff. Like in my scripts, I never add any text strings to help me. Remember that's what, because I remember this.
Right, I think that's a lesson.
When you're down the road.
Right. Well, that's a problem. That's what all of us coders have to deal with. I think it's a lesson. It takes years of actual usage to figure out that you need to do that. Like I would say probably the first 6-7 years of programming I did in my life, I was like that too. I'm like, I don't need to document this, because either in my head it was like, I'll remember, which is wrong.
You have too much faith in yourself.
Too much faith in myself. Or it was like, I'll never edit this again anyway, so who cares? And both of those statements are patently false and stupid. So now So then it would be like I would go back for. It was a real big problem for me because I started out learning to code by doing websites for people in the late 90s, and I would think I'm never gonna have to do this again. Well, obviously that's dumb. People edit their websites all the time, and then I would try and go back and edit the code, and I have no idea. So then I would have to start over from scratch essentially. And so like just those couple life lessons are like now I probably overcompensate with my commenting, because I'm like, I know I'm gonna forget. Like, this is for me, if nobody else. So I've picked it up, and it's not a big problem because I comment for myself. But it's definitely it's definitely a change when you're writing code for others. I have some of those
scripts in there. I have some scripts that I really don't want to go back to, because I avoid those locations, because I really know I should improve that script, not only because it should run better, but to make it more interesting. I don't want to open them. I know what mess is going to meet me there. I don't want to see it.
Well, it also starts to feel like you're moving backwards a little bit Whereas it's like, well, I could go back and revisit that, but it works already, and instead I could use my limited time to make something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling like, okay, I will fix all those things in my final update.
Right.
Which will be never, probably, because I will keep on doing this feature creep.
Well, we appreciate the feature creep because it's getting a lot of fun, and it's especially fun when I take having taken a big break from the playing and then coming back and seeing all of your updates. That's one of my favorite things about Bethesda games, and it's been a while. I actually have been thinking in the back of my mind, man, I need to go do this to Skyrim because I haven't played a fresh playthrough of Skyrim in probably 5 years, and my God, the depth of mods that are probably available now.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that with the Skyrim Enhanced. It's called Skyrim Enhanced.
Oh, Special Edition. Yeah, the
Special Edition. Yeah.
Although from what I understand is most mods haven't been ported over to it yet, so it's actually it's actually got a pretty light mod load compared to the original Skyrim.
Okay.
But yeah, because it does look quite a bit more pretty now in Special Edition. But I don't know if that's worth sacrificing all those crazy mods that people have put in.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, there was so many good ENBs in the first game version as well. So
sure,
it kind of feels like the first version looks even better than the.
That's true, and there's also the overhaul. There's always these overhauls in Bethesda games, and wow, I don't know how people find the time to do it or the energy of rebuilding all of the models and textures to bring them up higher quality. It's like you guys are.
Some things are just so beautiful. Like this was like flora and fauna mod for the Skyrim.
Yeah, and they put in the time. They just basically take every single asset Bethesda did and redo it. It's like, my God, that's the amount of hours that Bethesda put into it, and then you're gonna put that in again and do it higher detail level. It's like, whew.
Yeah, you alone by yourself.
Right.
Do you ever see the sun?
It's the passion of the modder, man. It
is, yeah.
It's hard to beat that the amount of effort people will put in. That was somebody described sellout to me in a good way on one of my comments that on my videos that I liked, because there's a lot of talk with game companies, calling them sellouts because they are focusing on the financial side of things, and like I tend to give the companies a pass and be like, listen, they've got to make enough money to make this feed everybody. Like, they got to pay for all of these developers. The cost of development keeps going up. They got to make sure that there's enough profit in there to make it worth all this effort and coordination. And somebody made a good clarification that it was like the line that you draw there is when they're making decisions not for the sake of good gameplay and instead making them for the sake of more money. That's the line they drew for selling out, and I kind of like that idea, because the people, and one of the things where you don't have that risk with modders usually is because there is no decision to say this is going to make me more money versus this will be better gameplay. We all tend to just lean toward the better gameplay, because then the only other way to go is just laziness. Then it's like you're either being lazy or you're putting in the effort.
Yeah. But it's all pro bono.
Sure. So I haven't seen any sign of you cutting corners in your stuff, but I have seen some signs of you either putting in, I'm hoping it's one of these, but maybe not. I'm hoping it's you planting seeds for stuff you're going to do eventually, or it's you're just like cutting off your own feature creep, where there's lots of doors that are inaccessible now or barred, and it's like, oh, maybe he's planning on making that go somewhere eventually.
Yeah, I don't think there are that many barred doors in the last update, actually.
Well, and it might be just I haven't explored enough, or I haven't found the right keys.
I think because it was only these like abandoned halls that it's
right
closed off right now.
Or there's like there's a doorway above the junction, up some stairs that leads to like some administration building. I don't think that's open.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Yes.
So
there was some initial plan for that. I don't remember what it was.
Got it. So are you?
I'll get to that.
I was gonna say, is it one day? Like you're gonna make sure you've got all these. Are you the type to complete this out enough to where there won't be anything like that, where it won't be any question marks? Everything will feel like it's finished, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna leave something that looks blocked. In that case, I will rebuild it to make it look like a broken door or something.
Sure. Yeah, so like there was
I don't
one
want
in
something to feel like unfinished.
Sure. So there's a handful. I think I found a door or two in every section that felt like that, where it was like, oh, he's got more planned over here. So then you must have some updates coming to even the existing locations.
Yeah. There are definitely new plans, and there's a lot of there's a lot of like hidden passages under the red seat that you might not have discovered.
Oh, I'm sure I
So
didn't.
yeah, so there are a lot of plans there, but most of them rely on quests that I have yet to
Right.
finish.
Now, as far as quests go, so you've said you like to be lone wolf and you like to have control. If the right volunteer came along that had the right skills and was willing to just follow your exact instructions and do exactly what you wanted.
I never said I wanted to be a lone wolf.
Gotcha. So you'd be open to having help to develop this, but you just want to have the control. Is that accurate?
Yeah, or maybe when I start to get other people involved, it would feel more like an actual project, and then I would be scared that I have to reach deadlines and stuff.
Sure.
You know, you have more responsibilities suddenly.
Right.
And I don't want it to feel like a second job, which it easily can become.
Oh, absolutely. For me, that's what mine is. My mod is definitely a second job.
You move to like a project manager kind of, like, I suppose.
Right. And
it's
just but again, the passion's driving me forward on it. And it's a good learning experience. Like, it's teaching me a lot about managing other artists and coders and stuff like that, because that is not a strong suit of mine. Like, I have never been the best manager in this. I'm trying to get better all the time, and so this is a good attempt to learn it. So I've enjoyed it from that perspective a lot. And then we get to build things I could have never built myself. So, like, you know, I can do the code myself, but for a perspective. So the initial version of Sim Settlements took me like 6 months to build. It has, I think 15, it has like 15 buildings in it. And like, so most of the time was coding, but those buildings take a long time. Well, now in the community,
of course,
there are over 1,000 different buildings available. And it's like, there's no way, like, it would have taken me 10 years to do that at that pace. So, so like, it's just fun to see the explosion of production you can do when you go into that space. I can make a suggestion if you want to hold on to the control. One of the things I've done in the past that helps is to, instead of asking for people to join your team and work on things long term, is instead you come up with those little things you want that you can't do yourself, or like, you know, I need a script that does this, and then when you ask individuals to do those one things for you, they'll send them to you and they don't care when you use it, so then you eliminate the deadline problem.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But I think
now that you mentioned it you see it as like a good education. I mean, that's what I'm looking for as well, since I'm trying to like utilize this in my everyday work as well. So maybe this is one way of me becoming a better project manager as well.
There you go.
So
you definitely have to sacrifice some control. Like, one of the things I try and do is with anybody who's doing art or writing is I try and give them, you know, almost complete autonomy in that. Like, I'll bring up objections if there's a functional problem, but for the most part, like, I try not to nitpick the art of it, and then that's one way I've had to relinquish control. So like, you definitely have to make some sacrifices once you turn into a team, but you have to do that in your professional life too, right? Like, you've got to occasionally be willing to sacrifice a detail that you thought was important because the rest of the team doesn't agree with you.
Yeah.
So,
but the thing is, sorry, what was I going to say?
Well, we were just talking about how you were thinking this might be a way to get some project management experience. You want to have control over this. Would you be willing to take on other people?
I mean, there are a lot of people who contact me and like ask if I need help. But usually the help they can give me is like ideas for quests and stuff. And this is really the easiest part, to have ideas.
Right.
So, you know, that part I can't do myself, but I do appreciate when people come with ideas, and some things I actually implement. But what I really need help with is for someone to come with an idea and actually implement it for me.
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way, and I think all mod authors feel that way generally. Of like, we don't need idea men. Like, if you're not willing to put some time in yourself and learn, like there are definitely some people who have given me suggestions of things I hadn't thought of, and it's like, oh yeah, thank you, that's a great idea. Yeah. But most people who come at you with ideas, it's like, I already have thought of that too, thank you. But like, if you're not willing to implement or try and learn, because that's the other thing is I've seen a lot of people who will say they'll send messages out or make posts on forums like, there's no way I could ever do this, I have no skills in this area. And I say BS. Anybody can learn to do this stuff, especially when with the creation kit, there's none of that is a real life skill in a sense. Like aside from, having a designer's eye and maybe a little bit of scripting.
Sure, that helps. Yeah.
Right. But most of it, you're taking assets and things Bethesda built and you're just putting them into different places and you're filling out little forms. Like it's all stuff you can learn on the fly. Like anybody who wants to mod can learn to do it. It does not require, there's no prerequisite on skills. You don't have to have programming background. You don't have to have an art background. Like you don't have to have anything. Like if you just show up and you've got passion and you're willing to look through some tutorials and stuff, you can figure it out. It's all, the tools are all there.
Yeah, just be willing to feel stupid for a while. And then
right,
it
exactly.
will solve itself for a while. Like they said, sucking at something is the first step of being sort of good at something.
Sure.
So.
Oh yeah, and every day I mod, I find something I suck at, which is
me too.
Pretty
and I think
funny.
That's good. Every day you should find something that you suck at. That's the only way to improve.
But I guess where I was going with that is that if there were people who were interested in helping out with this, because anybody, if you haven't played with Diamond City expansion, you absolutely need to. It makes Diamond City feel so much more alive. So go check it out, everybody. But any of you who has been a long time player and is passionate about it and would like to see it expand, it sounds like Stats here might be open to some help as long as you're the type who can kind of do their own thing and doesn't need hand holding.
Yeah, and as long as you don't need a project manager, because I can't do.
Sure. Because I mean, just like you're coming close to the end of your list. So I remember when you first released, you followed through on this, because I remember you had like your idea of here are the sections I want to do, and you had this like nice. You might still have it up there. You had this graphic with all the different sections. Yeah, you still have it up there, like all greened out, and then you had little dates on there, like coming eventually, and like, so like you followed through on your plans, and but it looks like you're coming to an end now. When you have the rest of the plans that you've got listed there done, does that mean it's done, and you're gonna find some other new hobby, or do you have ideas beyond that you're not speaking about for the sake of not holding yourself to it, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I don't want to feel accountable to anything.
Sure.
No, but I mean, the final plan, I think, is to flesh this out with new quests and stuff.
Okay.
Like this, like the belly of the beast, as I call it, inside the Fenway Park.
Right.
I really want to make that place huge, and I really want to make it, like lots of different quests there. Like not only fetch quests, but maybe some unique stuff going on under there.
Sure.
But,
now,
I don't know how far I can take those things on my own, and maybe I do need help.
Right.
I most definitely need help if I'm going to do that. And
I think
when I get there, I will
voice
probably
actors.
reach out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Voice actors definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you ever
now, I've been recycling this vanilla dialogue. I don't know if you noticed, but I've been editing them like crazy.
Yeah, doing a lot of clever cutting together of things. Yeah.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it just sounds really bad. And inside the Red Seat District, it's not that noticeable because it's such loud music in there.
Right.
So
yeah.
That helps me.
That's a good way to cover it up. I really liked your Red Seat District, because I tend to find mods who do a lot of the stripper and prostitute stuff to do it in a distasteful way, and yours is a very you did it in a way that very much insinuates what's going on there without being over the top or unnecessarily gratuitous.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to feel authentic, and I kind of want people to feel pity for the people working there.
Sure.
Not that it should be like a sexual fantasy for someone.
Right.
So that's the whole reason why there's a kid sitting on a couch in there inside the brothel.
Right. Like,
okay, yeah, one of these girls working here is a mom.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a dark tone to it, which I think, again, like people people who are into that stuff tend to argue like in an end of the world situation, people would absolutely be selling their bodies to survive, and I agree. But I don't think it would be a cheery thing. It wouldn't be like a modern.
No, I don't think they would love
club.
it. It's not a passion project.
Right. It's a means to an end, and I think you've really captured that in that area.
Yeah. Same thing with a stripper area where the people are, when they're off duty, when they're just not stripping, they're just sitting around feeling sad.
Right.
And that's probably the life of people there.
Yeah. Yeah, you really. I could see there. You've actually gone through and you thought about a lot of details that I tend to overlook when I'm doing mod design. And like you thought, like it looks like you put in the thought of what should those people be doing at day and night. You thought about, which people would lock their houses, which ones wouldn't. Like, it looks like you've really taken a lot of time with each individual character in each space and like put in almost an insane level of detail. Like, and then like you've went through and set up all of the factions on your items so that they are, that they were stolen.
It's been gradually expanding. I mean, in the beginning there was because I didn't know how to do it, but
right.
The more I learn, the more of those things I try to implement and trying to give them some schedules and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. It feels very fleshed out right now from what I've experienced. But I really love the idea of quest there. And like I said, it felt when I walked through it today, I was like, oh my God, this would be like, this feels like the quest hub I wanted when I first walked into Diamond City. Of like, there's just, so one of my favorite things and one of the ways I determined if a design was good. So when we were designing Rise of the Commonwealth, which is the one that has like a pre-designed city that grows over time for most of the settlements. Yeah. When my job on that, I was the coder, but then I was kind of the support staff and was trying to help with direction. And one of the ways that I would one of my ways or determining factors for whether a city was ready is if I felt like I could get lost in it. And it really, you really added that in Diamond City, whereas before it was pretty straightforward where everything was. It was like there's the one circuit around the market and the area where the farms are, and then there's the mayor's office and the upper stands, and that was it. It was like, it wasn't hard to, you could easily keep your bearings, but I think it's more fun in a game when a city is designed with so many crisscrossing pathways, but enough landmarks that you can feel yourself getting lost at first, and then eventually you learn it. And I think you really captured that in Diamond City with your
that's a good
additions.
rule of thumb, actually. If you get lost, you've done your job.
Right.
Because it's not New York City. I mean, it's a post-apocalyptic, man-made city.
Right.
So there's no avenues.
Right. But and I think eventually you solve that for long term with landmarks. But I think that adds to the fun of the experience of the fact like you've got to learn your way around here. You got to learn that once I get to the bus, I make a left if I want to get to this person, or a right to go to this person. Like things like that. I think that's better design in my opinion for these organically grown cities that show up in the Fallout games in general. And it was really a thing in the older games, in like the isometric games. The cities were pretty sprawling and there were lots of little quest areas and stuff. New Vegas kind of had it too, with how big, like all the different subsections around New Vegas. And it really felt like you could kind of get lost in there and figure out like, oh, which door do I go through to get there? And eventually you wrap your head around it. But at first it was just like, oh my God, this is a city, because it's overwhelming, and that's how it should be. And Diamond City did not have that, but now does. And I think that's why in my head I was a little disappointed there at the beginning when you said you probably wouldn't do Good Neighbor, because I think Good Neighbor could use the same treatment of making it feel like a proper city.
Yeah, probably. But there are some nice mods touching there, like this Better Good Neighbor.
Yeah, I've got that on my
That's
to-do
done a really,
list.
really good job, like nice clutter and stuff.
Yeah, but I think I guess Good Neighbor is not nearly as large as Diamond City, which
that's true. Yeah,
that which I really didn't. I think Bethesda made Diamond City feel way smaller than it was with the way they designed it, and then it's because it's huge. There's a massive amount of space there, like just the time.
Yeah, and I guess they realized how much time it would take to actually add content there, so they just moved on.
Well, and I never. It's hard to tell where they draw the line on how much time they should spend in a space. Like if it's deadline things, or if it's just a matter of they have to cut because of console. Like that was one of those. That's one of those things that always that used to be a much bigger. I mean, it gets said still, but less now because the games look insanely beautiful on console. But when consoles first started becoming a big thing, people were getting. It was always the dumbed down for console. Now I don't think that gets spoken as much because consoles have caught up quite well with PCs as far as graphics are concerned. But in games like Bethesda's, where the limitation is more processor and memory as opposed to graphics, where it's like we want to have bigger and expansive and more things held in the game world at once, that I think Bethesda probably makes a lot more sacrifices than other games when it comes to PC versus console. Because they as you're seeing in Diamond City, you get to a limitation of just like, oh, like the computer just can't handle it. So then obviously console can't handle it. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess it's also the curse of having a big sandbox game, because I mean all these NPCs with their own schedules and stuff, that's really heavy on the processor.
Right. Well,
just handle all these quest lines and everything.
Right. Yeah. There's so much stuff that has to be kept in memory
Yeah,
all the time. That's one of the
because it
things
feels
that,
like, I mean, like in Diamond City, it's how many inhabitants are there? Like 30
something like
at the
that. Yeah.
most. Yeah, doesn't really feel like that big sprawling
Right.
um,
And
green
I,
jewel of
And I think,
town.
and I think that's why, like New Vegas, they forced it to be divvied up into sections because they're like, we can't
Yeah,
have this city with only 30 people living in it. In fact,
yeah.
there's a setting in the game, and I'm gonna make a little ESL mod for this, but there's a setting in the game settings.
Hmm.
So I can't remember which menu that's in. It's in the creation kit. There's a game settings menu off of one of the tool menus up top, and there's a setting in there about max AI that can be active at once, and it's like 40 or 45. And
Okay.
I want to see what happens if I jack it up to like 200 and see if it breaks my
Ooh,
computer, or if it like crashes a lot. Because one of the common complaints I
that's
get
interesting.
from people is that the settlers will just stop moving. And
Uh-huh.
I think it's just that limitation. It's just there's like a hard cap on
Probably,
the
yeah.
amount of AI, and so eventually they just
Oh,
stop
that's interesting.
responding. But yeah, that could be a fun optional like ESL
So you
mod.
can actually, increase that cap.
You can increase the cap, yeah, but I don't know how it affects things. Like, was it capped
Yeah,
because of Xbox? Because you can see there's clearly
yeah.
certain things in the game they changed. Like my favorite
Hmm.
example is those shop stalls in the workshop mode, because I'm a settlement junkie.
Hmm.
That's where I see it. Is they're just like, well, okay, we can't do this because of console.
Yeah,
To where if you raise that cap for PC, will the engine keep up, or does it not have enough resources devoted to that section where it wouldn't matter if you increase the cap? Because we don't
yeah,
know how much of that is hard coded as far as how many cycles does the game engine give to each particular activity. We don't know.
yeah.
But
But I mean, with Diamond City, it really feels like they ran out of time there, because if it was for Xbox, then I don't see that they would build this. Like the mayor's office is on this high, the press stands
mhm,
up in the top,
yeah,
and you have this huge visibility all over the city,
right,
and that's really, really bad for performance.
right,
So, and that must even kill the Xbox
yeah,
if
oh
you look out
absolutely.
over the whole city. So, if they really would keep Xbox in mind there, then they wouldn't have built it like that.
Right. Hmm.
So it really feels like they left it unfinished.
Well, that's sad to think about.
Yeah,
But you're rectifying
but
things and making it
yeah,
much
I'm
much
fixing
better.
it.
But I do like your strategy of going under the stands, because there's tons of room under there. In fact, you said you haven't visited a stadium, but like that, like the majority of everything is actually under the stands. So like
Yeah,
when you go to a ball game, like the stands themselves are like, and you see how high up they go. Well, all of that space under there are multiple levels of bathrooms and little shop stands, and
yeah,
there's
yeah,
people set up with carts in between. It's just like there's so much activity under there and so much
yeah. All
space.
those bars. Yeah,
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 right. So like there's tons to work with, and I think you've barely scratched the surface of that, because mostly what you've fleshed out so far are the structures that the people would have built on top of the stands. Well, then again,
yeah,
there's that entire. I think you have all of that amount of space again to work with underneath the stands. So like
yeah.
you could really go as much as you want, and then you can get into like making up your own lore and say that there are tunnels underneath that even. So
Yeah, but then there's also the question with the authenticity again, because
sure,
there must be a reason why they did not utilize those tunnels to begin with.
right.
So
Well,
I
I
kind of
think
have to build them like with a. There has to be a reason for why they didn't go down there to
right,
begin with. So
right. So
if
they
it's
almost
toxic, or if it's like the risk of it's just crashing down on you
right.
or something. So that's like tricky to find the reasons why
Yeah.
the
Why are
developers didn't build something there.
Yeah. Well,
So
and I mean, part of it can always be that this is one of those things where the quests can come in handy, is then you can have
yeah,
a quest of like, hey, let's go explore down there, and hey, let's clean out this toxic fumes and we'll rebuild down here. Like, and you can kind of evolve it. Um,
yeah. I
so,
was thinking of having like this kind of like janitor jobs like this. What's it called, Abbott, the
okay.
guy who fixes the wall. Like you
Yeah.
would go to him and he would give this all kinds of. The pumping facility isn't working. You have to go and screw these valves on different pipes and stuff.
Right.
Or this barricade like it broke down. You have to go and fix it.
Yeah.
Have this
Well,
small little quest here and there, so you can go back and like help out every now and then.
oh, that'd be fun. One of the
Just like
things,
have a reason to go back.
yeah. One of the things we've been talking about on our team lately is that some of those little characters that only have a couple of lines, I don't think anyone would notice if you recast them with a new voice actor. Like no one would notice that you just like got a new person to re-record their old lines and then you added in as many as you needed.
That is true, actually. Yeah, I never thought of that.
Because like Abbott, I bet he has like 3 or 4. He's got his one little quest for the paint, and then I bet he has like 3 lines he repeats over and over again, and that's it.
Something like that. And like, paint? Why paint? You could have lost opportunity.
There's a lot of room to play with in there, and
there is a lot of room to play with.
I'm hoping you follow through on the quest idea. I know it does. It definitely takes it up a notch, because then you almost add the element of time into things, of like how things change, and you've got to start thinking about, well, what if the player does this first or that first? Like it magnifies the amount of work. Like and every time and like you said, if you do it, you want to do it the old school way, where decisions mattered and there were forks. One of the things that occurs when you get to that point is then all of a sudden, every time you introduce a fork, you double the work at that point. So then it's like you have to do all the work for this and all the work for that decision. And this is it's clear why
there is one of those quests in there, actually.
Oh, you have some quests right now, because I didn't find any of your quests yet.
There is one quest with these forks, and the work it took, all the like bug fixing, and like, fuck, what if they do this before this?
Right.
It was insane, because it has like 3 or 4 different ways of solving it, and it has multiple ways of finishing the quests.
Yeah.
And it was crazy amount of work for something that would probably just take 5 minutes to actually play.
But
and you would never know there was other ways to finish it, because I don't want to give too many clues of what you can do and what you can't do. Because Bethesda always shows like, oh, you can do this or do this.
Right.
And I really want to keep that like hidden. But
but that's one of those things where that requires that passion. And for one of the biggest examples in the older Fallout games I always think about is the Gourmand in New Vegas, where there's just like a ton of different ways you could solve that, but they're never explained to you up front. You just kind of talk around to people and you get hints at things, and you can solve that in a bunch of different ways, whether it be rescuing the guy in the freezer by stealth, or you can, convince your way to get on into to become, or to join them or whatever. Like there's all these different ways to solve it. And I think for most people, exactly what happens is exactly what you said, which is where they do it the one way that feels like the right way, and they have no idea that there were a bunch of other different ways to solve it.
Exactly.
So like
I think the first time I noticed something like that was in. Have you played the first Deus Ex game?
Oh yes, I love the Liberty, that island sequence at the beginning, that first level. I've probably played that 150 times, because there's so many different ways to go about it.
Yeah. So in Deus Ex, I think I remember there was. I think it's okay to spoil this game, because it's old.
It's pretty old.
But there was one scene where you were in this private jet. And there was this woman there who was kind of evil, or you didn't know, but you felt like backstab or something.
Okay.
And the game told you to get out of there and leave the area. But you could, if you were really good, you could kill Jet. And that changes a lot of stuff in the story.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
She was really hard to, like, I had to throw in like small, like, these proximity mines and throw grenades, and everything was so hard to do. But I was determined to break the game. But it turned out that they had thought of it. I did not break the game because they thought of it.
That's
Those
awesome.
magnificent bastards.
Well, I think one of the reasons that probably is, like, if you had spec'd your character to do more damage and be more combat focused, it's probably a lot easier to take her down than it maybe was for a stealthy character.
Oh yeah, that is true. I always play stealth.
Yeah, same here. I feel like that's the best way to experience as much of the game world as possible, is to play stealth.
Yeah, to feel naked and afraid.
But I think that a lot of developers in the RPG space have recognized that most players don't appreciate the level of choice on an individual level. But I think as a whole, we really appreciate it, because even though individually we might not know that quest had all those different options, we know that when we approached a quest in a way that we came up with in our heads, it just worked and it responded the way we expected it to. And I think that's why, like a little studio like Obsidian has been able to continue to do what they do, even though their space is not as popular anymore, is because the fans that they do have are so they understand that effort, and they're so happy with that result of the fact that it's almost like having an automated dungeon master that like can react to whatever you think up, and it's a way more work up front, and man, is it rewarding when it's done well.
Yeah. I mean, what is the name of the new game that's coming out soon?
Other Worlds.
Kind of like this,
or Outer Worlds, Outer World, something like that.
Yeah, I'm so psyched about that one. I really hope there's going to be like this multiple choices things in that game.
It looks like that's what they're focusing on, and all of their other games they've been releasing definitely follow that pattern. So I don't think they'd break it.
Yeah.
I think what they're worried about, something you said earlier, is they seem to be doing damage control in that regard. Like you had said, you're worried that how nice your mod page looks makes it look like you're a team instead of one guy. Is that I think Obsidian is like, we just basically hinted that we're making a sequel to a spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas, but it's not even close to that big because we have, I think their team is like 30 people or something. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're a real tiny studio.
Okay, yeah, they certainly didn't make it look like that. I mean,
right, it looks really,
like a
really
AAA,
good.
really.
But yeah, and I might be wrong. They might be like 60 people, but they're nowhere close to like modern studio size. So there's going to be limitations to what they can pull off. So I think what they're doing is just it's just going to be a shorter game. So it'll be like New Vegas if you could finish it in 10 or 15 hours or something. Which,
but yeah, it could be something to build on too. I mean,
right. Well, and they've also
because.
They've also said there aren't going to be modding for it, which a lot of people, I was pretty disappointed by, because I was like, if you guys tell me there's modding for that, I'll be bringing some settlements to the Outer Worlds real fast.
Yeah, oh, that would be so awesome. Finding new planets and colonize them or something.
Right.
That would be great.
We'll have to see if they because it would be awesome to see more games get into the modding scene of like releasing their tools and supporting it. I think there's a lot of fan loyalty to Bethesda. Like where, like personally, like I've become, it's going to take them more than just the Fallout 76 mistake for me to give up on them. Whereas other studios, like I used to really love the Assassin's Creed series, and then they put out a couple of bad games, and I'm like, no, I'm done. I have better things to do. Like I don't know if you've played that series, but when Unity came out, it was set in the French Revolution. Amazing. It seemed like an amazing place to have a game, but it was so buggy and broken that it was like, oh, this is just, you guys just burned $60 of mine because the game became
I just played the first game there, and I just felt like it wasn't for me because I really felt like I didn't have control of my character.
Sure.
It was just jumping like crazy, and
oh yeah, because they try and do, it's like very automated parkour to where.
Yeah, and I mean, if I want to be stealth, I don't want to ruin the immersion by suddenly falling and face planting.
But anyway, but Bethesda is one of those studios where anytime I've run into a misstep in their games, I'm easy to forgive them because there's so much depth in their games. There's so much to love, and I know that after the fact, the community is going to take everything I disliked about their game and polish it up and add more content to it. And essentially, like, I think you could make, like, maybe not with Fallout yet, or maybe, I don't know. It's been a while since I played it, and I have no idea how much my own mods affect this. But with Skyrim, I've created like 800-hour playthroughs and still haven't seen everything. Like, it's crazy.
I mean, I've played 300 hours in that game, and I still haven't finished it.
Oh yeah, it's easy to do that, especially if you start tossing on quest mods and stuff. I mean, there are like 4 or 5 fully completed like DLC and bigger sized mods available to where you can almost like,
people are amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So like I'm surprised more game companies haven't embraced that of like, oh hey, look, the community, there's tons of people hungry to create games who maybe can't do it professionally, and like all we have to do is toss out a tool set and maybe a few tutorials, and they'll go nuts. And like don't stop them. Like don't try and block them. Like that's something Bethesda does that not all game companies will do, is they don't put out a bunch of cease and desist. Like even there was the thing with the Fallout 3 remake in Fallout 4 with they did not. There was a rumor that basically Bethesda stopped them from doing that, which wasn't true. They just wouldn't give them their blessing. They wouldn't say, yes, you can do this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But like as the past has shown us, like things like there's the mod Tale of Two Wastelands. Have you played this? Are you familiar with it? So it basically lets you combine Fallout 3 and New Vegas into one game, essentially. and like, so clearly there's evidence that it's possible and they don't stop it from happening. So it's like Bethesda is one of those, they don't seem to ever like hit the brakes on their fans for the most part. Like even the there was a rumor they stopped Skyrim together, but that's not true. It's happening. It's in beta right now. So they seem to be very, very supportive of their modding community, and it just continues to like make people want to play those games forever. I would think more game companies would be jumping on that bandwagon, because it's like you've already developed the tools. So outside of maybe licensing issues, like I don't know why they don't like, here, just put that up on your website and be like, go nuts, guys, have fun with it, see what you can do.
But I feel like Fallout 76 is a bad omen there. It feels like they are heading a path I'm not really feeling comfortable with.
Well, I think because
with the Atomic Shop, and I mean they made mistakes before with the what was it called, the where they sold mods for a while.
Oh, the on the Steam, the mod, yeah.
So it feels like they're really trying to find a business in this.
Right.
And I mean, the only business they can find on this is to make exclusive mods.
Right.
Or make them not for free. So I'm a bit scared about the future of Bethesda games. And I hope that won't affect the next Elder Scrolls. I hope they're going to leave it free for modding.
I think their last two experiments have been a failure as far as that's gone, because I think 76 has been a disaster, and people are criticizing the crap out of the costs of their thing, and like I
really hope it will be a failure for them, and I hope they will see that.
Right, that people don't want that. Well, I think there's just a general discontent among gamers about microtransactions. They're now asking for individual microtransactions. Like individual weapons can cost as much as what a full DLC used to cost, and like that's getting pretty insane. To where it's like, okay, guys, like you can't just nickel and dime us to death for art assets that should have just been included in the base game. Though at the same time, I mean, like there's got to be some sort of balance in there, because I would love to see games where, so one of the things that's cool about the games as a service, like for example the things like Fortnite and PUBG and stuff, is that the developers are incentivized to stick with the game forever, essentially. Like they will, as long as people are interested, they will continue to support it and work on bugs and try and add new stuff. Like I'm all about that. I love to see that happening, because like there are still issues. Fallout 4 is near and dear to me, but there are issues in it that have never been fixed. And if they were, if they had the right incentive to stick around with the game and had a couple of people on staff like permanently supporting it, then those things could eventually get worked out. And so like that's something that can happen in an online game that can't happen in a single player. So that part of it I like, but it almost seems like they're not willing to just like accept a small profit. They're trying to go like they want to get that $500 million a year profit going, and it's like there's got to be
they want the GTA shark cards or something.
Right. And it's like, oh, can't you accept something in the middle there? Like, why does your profit margin need to be 5,000% on that stuff?
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the GTA Online, I mean, that has been a huge success for Rockstar.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's kind of watered down the whole, the soul of Grand Theft Auto.
Sure.
I mean, when they're adding this like weird albeit fun like game modes, like this stunt cars and everything.
Right.
It's fun to play, but it's not GTA.
Right.
And it's like being watered down into some just circus, which is fun to play with, but I wish they made more make more missions that you can play with your friends, or make a DLC. Please.
Yeah, all those little side game modes feel weird in games like that. Like it's just like, well then why not just make, like I could probably find a better version of this gameplay in a indie title where it's focused on that gameplay loop. Yeah.
Yeah. But they saw that it was so much more lucrative to just add these small updates with some new fun game mode, and then pump out shark cards and up the prices in the shop. And I mean, I don't blame them for that, of course, because it's lucrative. And in the universe of GTA, I think that's kind of okay. Mm-hmm. But when you go to story-heavy games like Elder Scrolls or Fallout, I think that's a really big risk, because you're stretching it.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, I think in online games, it's a lot easier to sell that kind of stuff because people use it to compete with each other, like for status almost. It's like I've got this badass skin. I'm like the kind of loud it in front of other people. Whereas in single player games, that doesn't make any sense. Like who are you impressing? Like, is you gonna post screenshots with your cool stuff? That's like I don't know where the why they seem to think that can be kind of the same thing. And even 76, even though it's online, it basically.
We're speaking about the golden horse armor.
Was it? Yeah, stuff like that. Just like the silly stuff for sale, where it's like, why? I don't know why you're trying to make the prices match the stuff of multiplayer games when it's a whole different psychology involved.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we're not going to see Bethesda go down that road. I think there's enough backlash in general in the gaming community about microtransactions right now, and then combine that with the fact that 76 was a big failure. A lot of people were really pissed off about the Creation Club and then the paid mods before that. That I think that they're probably gonna want to just hunker down a little bit because they are a smaller studio. That I don't know that they can afford to take the big hits like companies like EA can take. Where even if people backlash on them, well, there's enough people who aren't, and they have so much money coming in that it's not going to hurt them long term. But it would be one of the things. So like, I think the only reason Red Dead Redemption 2 can exist in the state that it does is because of how good the online market for GTA was. Like, I think that funded them so deeply that they're just like, we can take 8 years to make a single player game, and. That is something that's been always the thing I had hoped for. That was like the one silver lining I was looking for on 76. I was like, if this becomes a GTA 5 for Bethesda, well, then their next single player title is going to be just bonkers. Like they will have.
I remember I read that like kind of like a conspiracy theory that that they were thinking of doing that. Like, okay, guys, let's make this online game. Just use all the assets from Fallout 4. And they just pump all the games into the next Elder Scrolls.
Right.
And I'm not sure if there's any truth to that, but
well, if you think about it from imagine if you were running a game studio, and you built your game, it took you years, and you made a little bit of profit off of it. Well, and then you're like, all right, well, my next game I want to do something bigger, which means it's going to cost me that much more money. Well, then it's like, well, I didn't make a ton of profit on my last game. I made some, so like, how am I going to fund my next game? And then each time that happens, you're trying to go bigger and bigger with your ideas because you're a creative person and you want to push your limits. That same thing has to happen at these game studios. They're like, oh, we should do this next, and then it's like, but that's going to cost. We're going to need to expand our team, or we're going to need some better technology, or we're going to need to hire a better programmer to handle that part. You're going to keep coming up with bigger and grander ideas, and you're going to want to be able to fund them. Yeah. So the idea of being able to produce one game that becomes the cash cow that can fund all of your creative aspirations, that's got to be really tempting and hard to resist.
Yeah, I mean, it's not far-fetched if that was the case, but again, do you think that Fallout 4 was had so much bigger scope than let's say like Fallout New Vegas?
Yeah, well, I think
if you look at the dialogue, the dialogue trees and everything.
Yeah, so I think that they were trying to play catch up with the industry with that. So they tried to take elements from a bunch of different games. Like they were like, oh, we really like the cinematic feel of Mass Effect. Like let's do that. And you can see in the creation kit, they went through a lot of effort to build out a system to handle that. So they put in a lot of tech to do that. And then they're like, let's capture this Minecraft feel. And so like they put in the effort to build a full system that could support all of that. So I think they really expanded on the system levels of what their engine could handle. Like I don't think like Fallout 4 never felt like a cash grab to me. It did feel like
no cash grab, but
right. Oh, like grander in scope. I think, when you think about all those systems and how much time it takes to develop them, like, that's a lot grander in scope. Like, look at the difference in power armor from Fallout 3 and New Vegas to Fallout 4. Like, there's argument against the fact that they introduce it so early and that there's so much of it. Like, and I agree with those, but the fact that it's fully customizable, all the pieces work like that. You actually watch your character get into it and not just carry it around in your inventory. Like they really ramped up that particular system, and that happened across the board. Their gunplay, total overhaul from Fallout 3 and New Vegas. It actually feels like a consistent shooter now. And like their weapon customization system, there aren't many games that have anything remotely close to that. So like they really did ramp up on a system level, but as far as scale of their story, no, they didn't up the ante there. In fact, they probably scaled back some. Like I don't think there's hardly any choice that matters. They're the endings are mediocre. The main storyline is hard to get really into. So I think they cut back on maybe the scope of it as an RPG.
The storytelling.
Right,
Yeah.
but I think they really amped it up on all of the individual systems.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go back and play Fallout 3 now, you'll miss a lot. It's just like, oh man, I have to use VATS for everything. Like this kind of sucks.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they definitely scope out bigger. I think there are some people at all of these game companies who are focused on the money, and then there are still a core, the people who do the work, who are passionate about not just games, but about pushing their own boundaries. Like I think creative people naturally want to just keep pushing their own skill set and envelope to do bigger and cooler things. And so like whereas like, a game like 76 doesn't feel like that. I don't think that the individual developers were there thinking like, let's make a cash cow. I'm sure what looks to me what happened is the best developers on their team just weren't involved with that game at all. It was like, so then if like you've got an average person pushing their bounds, the stuff they produce isn't going to be as good as if you have your top level talent pushing their envelope.
No, that is true. I mean, you have to push it. That's cool.
But like everybody, like I know Bethesda has, because again, I've watched lots of interviews with their management, and they love to give everybody at their company, and this is why they have such good retention among their employees, the chances to expand, spread their wings and grow. And so like I said, if they gave their B squad the chance to run a game, and they're like, here, all of you guys are going to get way better after you develop this game. Well, from the outside, when we're playing that game, the game kind of blows, but all those guys did get to get better off of it. So like, from their company, maybe that was worth the trade-off. I doubt it was from the for this particular case, because 76 was such a commercial. Well, we don't know how it was financially, but it definitely did a blow to their reputation. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm just a bit sad that they watered down the RPG the game for every game that they released lately. Yeah, like if you would compare to Morrowind,
right?
Like all the, the character creation, the storytelling, and all these just small things like in Fallout 4 when you get the power armor like 10 minutes in the game.
Right.
It's like there was supposed to be a build-up.
Right. It was supposed to be really exciting when you finally get it.
Game. Yeah. I remember like in Fallout 2 when you find the Enclave armor for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was such a huge thing to find that, to actually own it.
Right.
I get to like hand it to me like in the first quest.
Well, and then you find it just laying around everywhere. It's like, why wouldn't somebody else have picked this up by now?
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember like it was so rare to get it in those games that when you do, you're like, oh my God. Like there was just these like, holy crap moments of, oh, I actually get that. Wow.
Yeah. It's the Holy Grail. So here, have this power armor. We don't need it.
Right.
You don't need it? Nah, you can have it.
I mean, obviously
weird to me.
I think it's the same thing as what we're talking about. People trying to generate these cash cows with these online games with the microtransactions. Is you're trying to go to the wider audience, and the wider audience, the average person.
Yeah, maybe the audience have changed as well. I mean, I'm an old fart,
right?
Over 30. So
well, if you think about like the people who came from console or maybe haven't played RPGs and are just like a Call of Duty fan, it takes them a while before they're going to be ready for the depth and choice. They're going to want things a little faster, and so if you want to capture that audience, which is where the money's at, then you kind of have to make those sacrifices. And that's one of the things where I give Bethesda the pass, because I know they're releasing the mod tools. So it's like, even though maybe the game is catered to the broader audience and I want something more specific, I'll eventually be able to get that, which is nice. Like the power armor thing, I just made a video where I commented on the fact like, hey, does anybody have a good power armor mod for me that overhauls it and makes it less common? And I know there is one, I just don't know the name of it. So like anything you want to change about the game, you can just do it. Or somebody will for you.
Yeah, so, thanks to the modders though, because
right.
I have a hard time seeing myself playing any Bethesda game, maybe except Morrowind, without any mods.
Sure.
But maybe it's because of the type of player I am. When I want the full immersion, and it still bugs me that you can't see the weapons that you're carrying on your body.
Well, there's a mod for that.
I know there are some mods for that, but it's kind of like you have to craft You have to craft like a prop that you can
Right.
carry.
Right. It's
So
it's pretty clunky.
all these workarounds. So
Yeah.
it's those kind of things. Feels like this was supposed to be an RPG. It was supposed to be about my character and all these things I'm hoarding, and I can't even see my huge minigun that I was just carrying from this this power armor, and just put this minigun in my pocket.
Well, I mean, that's a problem in general in Fallout.
It breaks my heart when it comes to authenticity, and this is why I'm feeling that Bethesda they make fantasy games. They don't do
right. They're not doing realism.
If you make a post-apocalyptic game, you have to base it on reality. It has to stem from something real. If you make a city in a post-apocalyptic world, it has to be logical. I mean, you have to build it there because of necessities. It has to have the toilets. It has to have plumbing here and there, and it has to look dirty and stupid sometimes because that's the way people would have built it.
Right, you just use what's available.
Instead of building it in a weird location where it would be very inconvenient and straight up dangerous, to be like putting a big, huge school bus that couldn't crash down on all the children all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That's not smart. That's not smart, but it would work in a fantasy setting. That's fine. But
well, I mean, you kind of have the loot thing. You were saying like you two are a loot hoarder like the rest of us.
Oh yeah.
But that's going to be super unrealistic no matter what. Like if you want to carry even like a minigun plus any other gun, that's it. Like
but but I don't.
So you restrain yourself on that?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. But yeah, so yeah, that's just me, and maybe I'm probably like 0.101. Oh, that's not the number.
Right, well, I know what you mean though. Yeah, you're a small percentage of them. So would you prefer?
Yeah.
Like, well, so here's a question in that regard of would you prefer that Bethesda made a smaller game because obviously if they have say they opt and say like okay we'll accept that our game is only going to be exciting for 0.1% of gamers, which means they're only going to get 0.1% of the revenue they would otherwise. Would you be happy with a game that was then 0.1% of the size because that's about what they could afford to build?
No, but only because I don't really feel that they have this storytelling in them.
Okay.
That would be required for that.
Sure.
So I mean, I felt that in New Vegas they had the storytelling, and I think they had it in the old Fallout games, but I feel like they lost that spark somewhere.
Like, and maybe
to me, like just like you said, like this rule of thumb: when if you can get lost in a city, then it's a good city.
Sure.
I feel like if I play a game and the story makes me cry,
okay,
then it's a damn good story. But it hasn't happened in a Bethesda game. I really enjoy them, and I love the games. And there's so much stuff to do, and I can play them over and over again. But the story itself never gets to me.
Right.
And it's this way of like rushing the story, like in Fallout 4, like here's your baby, now it's gone. You're sad. But I'm not sad.
Right, you didn't give me enough time to actually get sad.
Yeah, it disconnects me from the character that I'm supposed to play. So that's like the opposite of a role-playing game. If I'm not feeling like my character is feeling.
Right.
So I don't know if they really focused on the storytelling and really boil it down to just the like the core parts of an RPG, then I probably would love it. But I know that's not going to happen because I'm the 1%.
Sure. Well, and I think that's where I'm happy. I'm just happy that the modding tools exist because even basically, I think so what we want can't exist in the marketplace. Is like we want AAA quality of everything. We want the best graphics. We want I mean, I'm obviously we all sacrifice on graphics with Bethesda games and accept that, but we still want something decent looking, and we want smooth gameplay. Like we want all of the best things, but then we also want a fully open world that reacts perfectly to everything, has the exact combination of survival elements that we particularly want, plus a perfect story. Like it's so like we basically want everything, and that's not. I don't think it's realistic to exist.
As well. I mean,
and each of us wants different things. Yeah.
a lot of people don't like my style with my mod because it's too gritty, it's too ugly, and like, oh, it's been 100 years, it should look better.
Right.
And that's got to be true for them. So
Right.
then my mod is not for them. So, but they can choose,
Right.
and I can choose to do it my way. So I'm
Right.
really thankful for the mods, and which is why I'm still sticking to that. I would never play a full or Bethesda game without any mods,
Yeah.
because it's I wouldn't be able to choose my own adventure.
Sure. So I guess what I'm getting at is I don't fault Bethesda for the way they've decided to take the company. Like,
No, of course not, because
and I'm happy with the results in that the base game's a little bit more watered down and it's designed for everybody. But then because I can get passionate about a game and I know there are a lot of passionate fans out there, then I can build like my perfect experience eventually.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm super thankful for the modding tools because I love building stuff for this game. So, and I mean, I'm using the assets that they have made.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm kind of playing their game even though I'm not playing it, and that is amazing. So.
Now, do you think in your sometime after or maybe before you finish Diamond City Expansion that you will go play the game again and maybe try and see some more of it? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it will be very interesting for me because I will walk around there and like, so that's where this texture is from. Stuff like that. There's that plank I used.
Yeah.
Because there's so much stuff I haven't seen, and I love that I haven't seen so much. And actually, yeah, I'm really glad that I didn't play the whole game when it first came out or when the first mods started coming out, because the experience is just going to be so much better now.
Sure.
So,
well, yeah, you'll be able to try and enjoy your own creation within that context too.
Yeah, and I'm finally going to be able to enjoy the settlements now that we have the same settlements. So I'm thankful for that.
That's the goal. We're still working on it though. Lots to do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been great talking with you.
You too.
I hope that you will continue to expand Diamond City and that your dreams of making it quest laden come true. So anybody out there listening who wants to see some quests happen in Diamond City, you should poke Stacks about maybe helping them out.
Give me a holla.
Awesome. All right, man. Do you have anything else you want to promote or talk about before we roll out?
Download Sim Settlements.
Download some. I appreciate that. All right, man.
I can't speak for myself because I haven't played it, but I certainly will. It's on my list for the next playthrough.
I mean, yours has been on my list to get back into for a while, and I finally got back to it. It feels really good. So nice work.
Cool. Really appreciate it.
All right. Nice talking with you, and we'll catch you next time.
Nice talking with you.